So in a way, I will pick up on what Chiara was presenting, because together with my colleague Magda Miśkowiec, our paper is about one specific type of stakeholders and actors in the fashion sector, namely independent designers and small fashion firms. And when we speak about this very broad general discourse and practice of sustainable fashion, sometimes there is this suggestion that perhaps small fashion firms and independent designers, because they operate at the intersection of all stages of the fashion value creation chain, because they are very convinced about their work, engaged in emotional labor, they are in particularly well prepared to practice sustainable fashion approaches, or to put them into practice. This ties well with the proposals of the broader role of fashion designers in fashion, not only as designing garments as such, but also as agents of change who can inspire the whole change in the fashion system, as proposed, for example, by Fletcher and Grosse. And this ties into this discussion whether, if we speak about sustainability of fashion design, we speak about kind of trying to minimize the negative impact of the existing fashion system, so what Fletcher calls the technocentric design approach, or we are speaking of this broader role of fashion designers in an ecocentric design for sustainability approach, which is much more proactive and anticipatory. At the same time, if we try to match the two issues, independent fashion design and the issue of sustainability, we come across a lot of challenges, among others that the whole term independent fashion is quite an ambiguous idea. And as you can see from our short literature review, actually most publications are quite recent. What they propose is, first of all, that independent fashion designers of independent firms propose original own collections, produce on their own, take responsibility for what they do, have control over production. Sometimes independent fashion is defined in opposition to mainstream or fast fashion. It is also proposed that this lack of affiliation with a major firm or brand might be a definition, local embeddedness, engagement in local cooperation networks. Perhaps the most broad definition so far is by Twitter, who says that this independent fashion producers retain creative control and develop and foster close personal connections with peers and customers. Sometimes independent fashion is also defined through its features such as authenticity, uniqueness, artisanship and quality, creative control, aesthetic values, originality, implementing designers' values and philosophy into production of garments, or a limited production. And there are also different typologies of small fashion firms and independent designers proposed. Some of those typologies focus on, let's say, scale and potential scale of the firm. So small scale independents, for example, are those who do not want or cannot, for structural, for organizational reasons, expand production. Commercial independence would be those who produce on small scale, but potentially the firm can expand. Or according to the sort of type of fashion that is produced, so kind of avant-garde, artistic, elite designers versus, for example, dressmakers serving, say, ordinary customers. In some publications that we found, actually independence in fashion is not defined, but it is implied that one of the strategic responses of small firms and independent designers to compete with fast fashion in recent years has been the turn towards what actually the authors here term slow fashion, but we can say sustainable fashion, by focusing on quality and timeless design, targeting niche markets. cultivating this local embeddedness, with connections, or creating own brand boutiques. But all in all, and that's why we have decided to kind of follow this topic, there are still many ambiguities in terms of understanding the term independent fashion, and not enough research on the issue. Moreover, there is a lack of more nuanced understanding how independence translates into sustainability, or what are the links between independence and sustainability. And moreover, most of the research so far has been, at least the published research in major journals, it has been focused on Anglo-Saxon experiences. Britain, US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, sometimes, but to a very limited extent, Asia or South America, or maybe Scandinavia. And also in the Polish context, for example, we do have some emerging research on sustainable fashion, but so far it was done from the point of view of fashion consumers, fashion education, or just introduction of general sustainability ideas in the form of guidebooks or textbooks. So the goal of our paper was to explore the issue of how do self-employed fashion designers or owners of fashion micro firms, how do they understand the term independent fashion, and at the same time, how do they understand the concept of sustainable fashion, and what are the connections between the two understandings? And in doing so, we also, one thing that came across was, is there perhaps some type of wear, some type of fashion that is more likely to generate some specific ideas and implementation of some ways to make fashion more sustainable? For example, is there a difference between those microfirms and fashion designers which are more focused towards casual versus semi-formal or formal fashion? And we also wanted to look at what are the problems and challenges if indeed the small fashion producers can be produced within the framework of sustainable fashion, do they encounter any problems and challenges? Now, this paper is a part of a broader research project on the fashion market in the context of sustainable development, looking at very different issues in the context of Poland, from fashion education to fashion events to big firms and independent designers and urban spaces where fashion is visible. But for the purpose of this paper, we focused especially on the qualitative analysis of semi-structured, in-depth interviews conducted for the purpose of the project. So far, we have conducted over 30 such interviews, but here we focus especially on interviews with independent creatives who are owners of fashion microfirms or independent fashion designers, whom, as we're doing broader interviews with them, we would ask about their own self-perception and definition of independence and sustainability. Now, very briefly, what are the results? What are the results of our investigation? First of all, as you can see from quotations of our interviews, independence in fashion is understood by those who we interviewed as implementing own ideas, doing own things in a way parallel to or independent of major trends. Producing garments of which the producers are convinced about. Not only following economic calculation, but also having the satisfaction of connection with clients, implementing vision, but also responding to clients' ideas and needs, creating unique clothing which is distinctive, but at the same time which creates some long-lasting value, which means that it can be used for longer time than just one season. Also functioning according to own rules and being able to both identify with what you produce, but also being able to control all stages of the production process. So this creative independence, but also organizational independence. Close links not only with customers but also with suppliers and services, very often tapping into local possibilities. To sum up this issue, when we analyze the responses, our research findings show that understanding of independence of fashion focuses on three, I would say, main dimensions. On the one hand, self-management, which could be connected really with any independent entrepreneurship, and a small owner of a small firm, initiator of a small firm who implements his or her own idea, who takes the risk, who has to be multitasking, but also who takes control and is able to control all stages of a production process, and therefore is also to sometimes be more innovative, more creative, and more flexible. On the other hand, sort of opposition to what is understood as fast fashion, so giving less importance or no importance to trends, to fitting with trends, and to seasonality, but rather implementing own artistic concepts, looking for new opportunities, but not in line with trends and seasons. And this feeling that you are creating a certain lasting value which will withstand temporary trends. And the third dimension of understanding of independent fashion, smaller scale of production linked both with tapping to local resources, but also being able to pay attention and wanting to pay attention to detail, to quality of stitching, to also direct contact with clients, maybe responding to client needs. Now, the same participants of our interviews, when asked what they understand as sustainability, not only defined sustainability, but very often right away related it to their own practice. And here, on the one hand, they followed this general, broader and broader understanding of sustainability in fashion as using both ecological textiles, but also ethical issues, but also reducing carbon footprint. So these general things. However, what was quite interesting was that this longevity, for example, and maintenance of value over long term, avoiding overproduction by having smaller stocks and by having producing on demand or producing bespoke fashion. Close connection with seamstresses or sewing workshops to a certain quality, but also a certain that this workforce is remunerated and is treated in a good way. Awareness that such fashion is not completely withdrawn from all trends, but sustainability may also help the company to survive and to find some customers. But this general also issue of respect for human beings, respect for environment, also transparency, limiting waste as a way of limiting company costs, but also being responsible, producing garments which are safe but may be used multiple times. And again, if we try to summarize this, this was interesting that this sort of theoretical proposal of design sustainability and division of it between techno-centric and this broader ecocentric was also reflected in our research results. So on the one hand, this independent fashion designers and small firms focused on this ecocentric approach, care for resources, ethical issues, fair trade, longevity, zero waste, less waste, and for example, upcycling or limiting production. But on the other hand, they also spoke about these broader issues of, for example, transparency, For example, this broader idea of educating customers, of engagement with local communities, of creating places of social encounters, for instance. We have also, in the talk of our analysis, noticed that indeed this intuition, our hypothesis that perhaps different garment types may lead to implementation of or focus or more stress on different sustainable fashion approaches, this has indeed proven true. For example, those independent designers and small fashion firms which designed and produced more casual attire were more prone to make sustainability a key part of their brand image. They more often understood sustainability and practiced sustainability in terms of use of organic or certified textiles, as they used more often I would say, very basic designs and textiles. They were more often purchased in Poland. They would have small stocks and their responsible, let's say, production consisted to a large extent also on producing repetitive patterns, but on demand when the customers actually ordered a given item. They very often were very transparent in terms of putting information online in the shops on the labels as to what is the blend of fibers used, what is where the product was sewn, even by whom it was sewn, etc., etc. On the other hand, semi-formal or formal and festive attire designers and producers would also practice sustainability, but more, I would say, not so officially as a part of brand image, but more implicitly. They would focus on creating unique value through designers' individuality. They would stress that their brand produces everything locally or in Poland. They would stress quality of stitching, quality of textiles, not that the textiles are organic or certified, but more that they're good quality, so very durable, and they would last longer. Hence, very often for them it was important to purchase good quality textiles, and they were more often inclined to purchase them abroad. In the Polish context, especially they liked, for example, Italian textiles. They had small stocks, but small stocks of different kind, of rather unique items produced only in a few copies of let's say one garment, and not in all sizes. So they on the other hand often produced also according to specific needs of a specific client, as type of bespoke of custom-made fashion, and they would explain this different unique aspects of their garments to clients in direct contact, rather than through tags or transparent description. How can we link this result of what is sustainability and what is independent fashion? To sum it up, we found that three characteristics of independent fashion and understanding of sustainability are very important and overlap, and indeed make independent fashion designers and small fashion firms likely to apply sustainable fashion principles. On the one hand, it's an issue of timing, sort of going alongside or against trends and seasonality, and producing something that lasts more than a season, this idea of longevity of use, which is linked with attention to detail and quality, which also translate into likelihood or higher likelihood of longevity and durability, and producing rather small quantities because these garments are unique, or because they are produced on demand when customers actually need them. And the fourth important characteristics, indeed, retaining or having a quite large control over all stages of production, from the concept to distribution. However, and this is important to emphasize at the end of our presentation, the picture is not so black and white and not so rosy and sunny. Because although these characteristics of independent fashion designers may indeed make them likely to apply sustainable fashion principles, in practice there may be a lot of challenges and a lot of problems. A lot of problems which are linked with the very nature of independence. That is, these are small firms dependent on enthusiasm and management skills of owners. So this may not last, may be short-lived, and there's a question of economic sustainability. Economic and sustainability questions linked with the fact that a small firm, in fact, has less access to resources, is maybe sometimes less likely to be involved in more complex research and innovation. It may not be able, even if it is aware of existence of some solutions, apply them, because, for example, if a small firm needs some textile, they have to it's available only if they order quite large quantities, which they are not able to process. The fact that being locally embedded, it's sometimes not a choice but a necessity, just because they cannot afford to do anything else, producing small quantities. Also, some types of wear are less likely to be produced by independent firms as sustainable, or for example, menswear or children's wear. Children's wear, for example, due to the need to have many different sizes in stock, which is economically not viable. Also, it's easier to make sustainable casual versus formal clothing if we looked at the textile use. And there might be also some limitations linked with, for example, the local market. Polish customers may say that they like ecology, but in practice, through their purchases, they look at cost, and maybe they look at aesthetics and quality, and not on some sustainable properties of garments. And last but not least, a lot of our interviewees said that there's actually no support for them to practice sustainable fashion approaches. At the end, I have also to say that we also cannot only paint independent fashion producers in rosy colors, because just as fast fashion and big firms, they may practice greenwashing and actually enter the market carrying on their banners this idea of sustainable fashion, not so much because they're convinced, even if they declare so, but because they find it a nice marketing idea. And we hope to explore this issue in depth as we conduct further interviews. Thank you very much.